All right, today we are diving into something pretty fascinating, Ondo Finance. This is a company that's building a bridge, a massive one, between the old school world of finance and the brand new world of the blockchain. We're talking about taking things like US government bonds, super traditional stuff, and turning them into digital assets you can use and trade anytime, day or night. So let's get into how they're pulling this off and why it could be a much bigger deal than you might think. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the problem Ondo is trying to solve. Then we'll get into the specifics of their products and the tech that makes it all work. And finally, we're going to zoom out and really look at why any of this matters for the future of money. So to really wrap your head around what Ondo is doing, you have to understand that right now there are basically two different financial universes. And for the longest time, they've been operating on completely separate tracks, almost like they don't even know the other exists. Yeah, on one side, you've got traditional finance. This is Wall Street, banks, trading desks that close at 5 p.m. It's enormous, it's established, but man, is it slow. It's full of gatekeepers and middlemen. And then on the other side, you've got this wild new world of decentralized finance, or DeFi. It's always on, 24/7, open to literally anyone with an internet connection, and it moves at lightning speed. And this setup leads to a really, really powerful question. What if you could take the most stable, most trusted assets from that traditional world, think US government bonds, and just bring them over into this new, super efficient digital world? What would that even look like? What could you do with that? Well, that's exactly the question that Ondo Finance was created to answer. They've basically stepped up and said, we're going to be the ones who build that bridge between those two financial universes. So what is Ondo? Well, they launched back in 2021, and their whole platform is designed to do one thing and do it extremely well. Take high-quality, real-world assets and convert them into digital tokens that can live, breathe, and move on the blockchain. You'll hear this called tokenization, and it's the core of everything they do. Now, let's be super clear here. This isn't about creating some volatile new cryptocurrency. Not at all. Ondo is focused on taking the bedrock of traditional finance. We're talking assets managed by absolute giants like BlackRock and BNY Mellon, and just making them compatible with modern blockchains. The entire goal is to bring that institutional-grade safety and stability into the fast-paced digital world. So, how does this actually work? I mean, how do you take a physical or at least a conceptual thing like a US Treasury bond and turn it into a digital token that's zipping around the internet? To figure that out, let's look at what they're actually making. The main idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. They take these super stable assets that are usually just locked away in some brokerage account, and they create a kind of digital receipt for them, a token. And once that receipt exists, it can be traded, used as collateral, and integrated into this whole new DeFi economy 24/7. So they have three main products in their lineup right now. There's USDY, which is like a yield-earning digital dollar. Then there's OUSG, which represents a slice of a government bond fund, and OMMF, which is a tokenized version of a money market fund. Let's look a little closer at USDY because this one's cool. Think of it as a digital dollar, but with a superpower. Because it's backed by real interest-earning US Treasuries, it's designed to automatically pass that interest, that yield, onto whoever's holding the token. It's basically like having a high-yield savings account that lives right in your digital wallet. And it's a similar story with their OUSG token. This thing represents a direct, verifiable piece of ownership in a fund that holds US government bonds, which was initially linked to a major BlackRock ETF. It's not just a symbol or a proxy. It's like a digital title deed to a real, traditional financial product. Okay, so we've got these tokenized assets. They exist, but what makes them actually useful? And, who's in charge of this whole system? This brings us to the engine room, the tech and the governance that makes the whole Ondo ecosystem tick. I mean, it's one thing to own a tokenized bond, but what can you do with it? Well, that's where Flux Finance comes in. Flux is a lending market Ondo built where you can take your tokenized assets, use them as collateral, and borrow against them without ever having to sell. And the process is super straightforward. You deposit your OUSG token, and in return, you can borrow other stablecoins like USDC. This is a huge deal because it unlocks the value, the liquidity, from an asset that would otherwise just be sitting in your portfolio, not doing much of anything. So who's making the rules for all this? Well, instead of a typical CEO or a corporate board, Ondo is governed by something called a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization.
This just means that the community of people who actually hold the Ondo governance token are the ones who vote on all the key decisions about the protocol's future. And that whole community governance system is powered by the OND token. There's a fixed supply of 10 billion of them, and holding these tokens gives you voting rights. It's the fuel that runs the entire decentralized engine. All right, so we've covered the what and the how, but now it's time to zoom all the way out and focus on the biggest question of all. Why should we care? What's the big picture here?
You know, this quote right here really just nails Ondo's mission perfectly. It boils down to two huge ideas: access and safety. They want to open up these stable, high-quality investments that were, for a long time, only available to massive institutions. But, and this is key, they want to do it all by the book, making sure everything is compliant with financial regulations. So when you put all the pieces together, the vision becomes really clear. By turning these assets into tokens, Ondo is giving more people access to stable yields, they're unlocking 24/7 liquidity for assets that are normally stuck, and they're doing it all inside a regulatory-friendly framework. It's kind of like a potential blueprint for a more efficient and accessible financial system for everybody. And that brings us to our final thought. What we're seeing here with Ondo, it could just be the tip of the iceberg. I mean, if you can tokenize a US Treasury bond, what's next? Your house? A piece of a famous painting? Corporate debt? It leaves us with this massive, provocative question. Are we standing at the very beginning of a future where just about every asset in the world can be represented and traded on the blockchain? Only time will tell, but it's a wild thought.